It's about to get interesting. What's up guys, Justin Greenwald here, welcome to 65 Drums. This is the place to keep on top of all things eDrum related, so consider subscribing if you haven't yet. About a week or so ago, I did a video called, Do Drum Modules Even Matter Anymore in 2017? If you want to go watch that entire video, I recommend it. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. You can watch that first and then watch this video. But just as a quick summary, my argument in that video was that eventually the majority of drummers will only use drum software maybe in rare cases, maybe when they're like trying to record really professional stuff. In general, when electronic drummers go on stage or are practicing at home, they won't need to use laptops eventually because the drum module sounds are gonna get so good that eventually, who cares about the sounds you can get out of Superior Drummer or Easy Drummer or Addictive Drums. Also, I made the argument that drum modules are more convenient and a few other things. Again, if you want to watch that video, I'll leave a link in the description below. That was an opinion video and not everyone agreed with it. And someone who summed up the arguments of a lot of different people that didn't agree with me was Mike Luke. And he wanted to do a response video to some of the arguments I made. So I'm gonna hand it over to Mike now. After his video is done playing, I'm going to do some closing comments. Hope you guys enjoy.
Hey everyone, hello to all subscribers and viewers and fans of Justin Greenwald and his channel 65 Drums. I'm Mike Luke, I'm from Germany, and Justin gave me the opportunity to talk about some of the topics or some of the videos he released some days ago, where he talked about whether drum modules still kind of relevant in 2017, and he had some conclusions that I at least want to challenge. Because I think, Justin, you made some errors in reasoning, and I wanted to discuss some of the things as I use drum samples exclusively, and I'm not a big fan of drum modules, to be honest. So maybe we can have a discussion on that together with your community. So first of all, you said kind of a conclusion right from the start. I made some notes on this piece of paper here. People might stop using VST and rely completely on drum modules. So I think this is one of the first mistakes, kind of thought mistakes you made, because it's not a question whether drum modules versus virtual instruments, because I use a drum module as well because I simply need to. I need some kind of host to trigger my MIDI information when I play my electronic drums. To trigger Superior Drummer. Of course, all the recording and mixing engineers and producers who program drums using drum sample software don't need a drum module or electronic drum set, but at least for your target group and the people watching your channel, and I and you, we are all using electronic drums, so we need kind of a drum module. There are a bunch of drum samples on the market, but talking about one of the best Steven Slade drums in Superior Drummer, which you use too, Justin, the guys go to multi-million-dollar studios, engage one of the Grammy Award-winning recording engineers, recording high-end drum sets like DW and Tama and Pearl and Ludwig, with one of the best microphones on the market, and they record the whole drum set with a really love of detail, and this is the reason why those software sounds that good. It has nothing to do with the power of your laptop. Of course, you need some kind of a basic level from your laptop, but you don't need a Mac Pro to run VST. That's completely wrong. The next thing you talk about, this is what I really want to challenge, because I know that you are a fan of drum modules, but you said the reason people still stick to drum modules, it's because they are so easy to use. And you talked about your process, finding your laptop, going downstairs, switching on the laptop, and fighting with some latency issues. But come on, Justin, I think this is kind of a creative process to make it more obvious. From the moment I switch on my Mac until I sit on my drum set and start playing, it takes me literally 40 or 50 seconds. So this is no really a deal between you just switching on your TD30 and I'm switching on my computer to start drumming. It's 40 seconds. So come on, that's not a deal. And then you said and this is kind of annoyed me and got me angry, because you talked about that drum software is so much expensive. This is just wrong. You use a TD30, Justin. So let's consider, instead of buying a TD30, which is $2,000 basically, consider buying a TD12, which you get for in used condition for $300-400. Then you buy decent Windows laptop for $800, or maybe a used MacBook, which you get for $500 or $600. You need Superior Drummer, which is basically right on sale, $150. and you need a decent kind of interface for that, which is another 100 bucks. So overall, you are even cheaper using Superior Drummer, and you can create kind of a setup that you use exclusively just for running Superior Drummer, and not like fighting around with all those crappy plastic sounds within your drum module. Because, and this is the most important thing I want to make this video today, most of the people, using drum modules, what do they actually do with this drum? Do they take it on stage? Yeah, maybe sometimes, but not the majority. Do you use all those like plastic weird sounds that you sometimes see when Michael Shack like demonstrates the new models? They are fun to play sometimes, but do you use them on a regular basis? No. What people like 8 out of 10 people using a TD30, TD50, TD11, you name it, is they use like the so-called acoustic sounding sounds within the drum module because they want to practice, they want to play along to their favorite song, they want to play along to their bands in the rehearsals, and they want to hear like drums. And that's the reason, because we are musicians and we want to sound like drums. We all want to sound like Simon Phillips and Dave Grohl and Lars Ulrich, like on some of the albums. And this is like what we want to sound like. We don't need those plastic sounds within the drum module. I don't have to struggle with all those plastic sounds that still the TD50 has. Listen to some of the tom sounds or some of the weird like cymbal sounds. With drum sample software, you get immediately the sound of acoustic drums. And the reason why people using electronic drums in general, of course, there are some drummers using them, like bringing them on stage, using them kind of a hybrid setup, of course. But again, 8 or 9 out of 10 drummers around the world are using or stick to electronic drum sets because they don't have the place, the room, or the silence enough to practice on an acoustic drum set. Recording and playing on acoustic drums is loud. It's time consuming. It can be frustrating even when you have to mic it up to record some of your drumming. So people stick to electronic drums, and that's the fine thing about electronic drum sets, that you can practice nearly all day long, especially here in Europe, where in comparison to you guys over in the United States, we mostly live in flats. So we don't have like those huge houses where you can maybe set up an acoustic drum set. We have to stick to we have some noise issues with our neighbors, so we need to stick to electronic drum sets. But at the end of the day, we are all musicians and we are all drummers. Which brings me to the last point. You talked about the Per Mimic Pro, and I highly agree. But you said, you mentioned the Per Mimic Pro as a proof that drum modules will still be dominant. But it's exact the opposite. Because what the Per Mimic Pro is, it's a little computer and a drum. Of course, it's a drum module, but it's completely based on drum samples. They kicked out all of the crappy plastic sounds from all the drum modules on the market, and they just packed it completely with drum samples. And I agree with you that this can be a game changer. But as you talked about, technology is getting better and better over time. So consider the Per Mimic Pro will be an success, and I'm pretty much sure it will be a success. So maybe think of Toontrack teaming up with Roland one day, and Alesis teaming up maybe with the guys from XLN Audio who make addictive drums. And the more competitors jump on the market, the more the price will decrease for those drum models, because the Per Mimic Pro still will cost $2,000 and it's just the module. But I don't think all those weird sounds that still consist within the newest drum models, musicians all over the world really need, and that's not the reason they buy the TD30 or TD50 or the high-end Yamaha flagships. So that's my thoughts about your topic. I really hope that we can start kind of a discussion together with your community. Thanks for giving me some time on your channel, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mike, for the video. I really like that he made this response video, because not everyone agrees with my opinions on where electronic drums are going and how important drum modules and drum software is. I like getting an outside opinion from someone who has more knowledge than me in that space. I've got a couple of things I want to mention about some of what he said in the video. Mike is right. You do need a drum module in order to use the drum software at all. But at the same time, technically, trigger interfaces do exist, like the Alesis Trigger IO, the D-drum equivalent, and in the future, any other products that might come out. But in general, you will need a drum module because they come with preloaded sounds. Even if you're not going to use them, at least you have the option. And they usually have better trigger settings or better trigger presets. So Mike is right. We will always need a drum module just to access the drum software in general. So that's something that I agree with. The second thing I want to talk about is the time barrier, how long it takes you to set up a piece of drum software and actually start playing. In my original video, I was talking about how I turn on my drum module and I start playing. If I use drum software, I gotta run upstairs, find my laptop, bring it downstairs, plug it in, unlock the laptop, and then I gotta load EasyDrummer, and then I've gotta blah, blah, blah. Mike called me out on the fact that I kind of did exaggerate that. And it's true. If you have a dedicated laptop sitting right there, and it's in sleep mode, as some other people said in the comments of that video, literally you open up the laptop, the program's already loaded, and you're good to go. But there's one other barrier I do want to mention, and it is the time barrier on learning how to use a piece of drum software. I don't know how many of you use VSTs, or if you remember when you first started using drum software, such as, Superior Drummer or something. There is a big barrier to entry. How do you use the darn thing? My drum set is playing the cowbell sound on the snare pad for some reason. How do I get over that? Do I need like a audio MIDI interface? Do I need this? Do I need that? There's a lot of frustration that does go into this. Even though Mike has set it all up so he just starts drumming within 40 seconds, there is a lot going on. And he is using extra components that someone who just uses a drum module doesn't have to worry about. So for example, I believe Mike goes from his drum set to a TD12, and then he goes to a Mac. And then from his Mac, he's got an audio MIDI interface, and then I believe he also has a headphone amplifier as well. So he's using all these extra components, and if you're traveling with a rig like that, that's just more to worry about. The next argument I want to talk about is price, and Mike is absolutely right. It is cheaper to go with drum software. I want to add a couple of things though. When you really start thinking about it, when you start getting sucked in to using drum software, the price goes higher than what Mike factually said. Mike has actually got a library of possibly $1,000 to $2,000 worth of drum sample sounds. He has nearly every expansion underneath the sun, and each of those expansions can cost anywhere from $70, $80 all the way up to $150 or $200 a pop. So all of a sudden that price of a piece of drum software that happened to be on sale one day is doubled, tripled, quadrupled if you start getting the extra drum sounds. One other thing I want to add to that is the fact that the Roland TD30 drum set does have solid sounds, not as good as drum software, but at least you get a lot to choose from. You don't get much to choose from Superior Drummer. You get one drum set, pretty much. That's pretty much it. You get one drum set. With EasyDrummer, you get like maybe 5, and then they tune it differently to make it sound a little bit different. With a high-end drum module, the sounds won't be quite as good, but you get more options. So you gotta weigh that as a pro and con thing. But still, no matter how you slice it, Mike is absolutely right. You can still save a lot more money by going the software route. So let me try to summarize our positions on this issue really quickly. Mike would rather go for the extra time invested to learn how to use the drum software and which components to buy so that he can get better drum sounds at a lower price. Meanwhile, I'm in the camp where I want ultra convenience and I'm willing to sacrifice some sound quality and some money to get to that point. And obviously I'm not against drum software. Obviously, if I'm recording for like something professional, there's no way I'm gonna use the drum module sounds. I'm gonna go drum software. But if I'm about to play on stage or practice in the basement, I'm not gonna be plugging in a laptop. Meanwhile, I'm in the camp that wants ultra convenience. I don't have many moving parts. I have one drum module. I don't have a laptop, a mixer, a headphone amplifier, a drum module, an audio MIDI interface, and a piece of drum software that I gotta learn how to use with the drum module. There's too many things going wrong, and if you're going to play with this live, that's more to worry about, to weigh on your mind. I'm not saying it's not worth it in the end, because you'll get a better sound out of it, and it sounds way more professional. I'd use that in a heartbeat if I'm doing a professional recording. But for playing live and for practicing, I don't really care. Me and Mike are kind of both right, and this is the way I look at it. He's going for the ultra pure best sound. I'm going for convenience. But here's the funny thing. We don't know where this argument will be in the year 2030 or, even just a couple years from now. Both drum modules and drum software run samples of acoustic drums. This is all recordings of acoustic drums. It's just that the drum software has much better recordings of acoustic drums that you're playing. Meanwhile, drum modules, for some reason, I don't know why, I'm not an expert in all this, but their samples of acoustic drums do not sound anywhere near as good as the stuff that's on your laptop. Eventually that gap will start to get smaller and smaller, and then you're seeing a lot of crossover right now where you're seeing drum software go onto drum modules with the Mimic, where it's running Stephen Slate Drums 5. When I'm talking about drum modules versus drum software, I'm not talking about the programs themselves. I'm talking about where the programs reside, whether or not that box happens to be the laptop or whether or not that box happens to be the drum module. If that software gets onto a drum module like it is on the Mimic, it's still a drum module. Eventually things might change. Those sounds that are on laptops right now, eventually they'll probably migrate over to drum modules. I think that's what's gonna happen. But even if that happens, you're gonna have more fine-tuning controls on a laptop. It's just gonna be easier to do all of that. For example, I could edit this video on an iPad right now, but I won't have the fine-tuning controls to edit the video like I do on a laptop. So there's always gonna be that edge. You know, the fine-tuning control will always be on the laptop. Am I right? Is Mike right? Like, what do you think of this whole situation? I'm interested to find out. Go check out Mike's channel. I don't agree with everything he says, but that doesn't matter. He's got incredible information on his channel, all kinds of great tutorials, all kinds of great explanations of like the differences between different kinds of drum software. Go check out his channel. I'll link it in the description below, and maybe a favorite video or two he's done that I really like. See you guys in a few.